The Modern Warfare 2 beta is over, and we at GameSpot have some thoughts. Some good thoughts, some bad thoughts, some ugly thoughts, and some mid thoughts. So we kind of wanted to go through everything that we got to check out in the beta and give you a breakdown of what's good, what isn't. But anyway, joining me is David Amati.
What's up?
And let's get right to it. So I think the first thing we should start with is presentation.
Sure.
This is a next-gen Call of Duty, but how do you think it looks?
I think it looks fine. If you really enjoyed Modern Warfare 2019, you will feel right at home with Modern Warfare 2. There was some really cool kind of like quality of life stuff on the presentation. Like there was an FOV slider, which was nice, but it looks really good. Graphics are clean and it looks solid. Although I want to say that as long as a game is kind of cross-gen, it's going to be hindered just a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
and it definitely seems that way. I mean, I will say this engine that they updated or built out for Modern Warfare 2019 is really good, I think. And yeah. I think the lighting shines, the visuals look great, but I think the real showstopper for me was the sound design. And the sound design has gotten a lot better over the years with Call of Duty games, but it's really good in this. I love firing those guns with the recoil. When you put on a silencer, they sound different depending on where you are. Like there's that one level, I think it's like the market.
I spent a lot of time there trying to capture, the B flag when you're playing domination.
That's how I know it all too well. Yep.
Absolutely.
Getting grenaded and killed multiple times, or me grenading and killing other people. Yeah.
Right. For me, it's just me grenading myself, but that's
I did that too a couple times. But yeah, I would say the presentation is definitely a highlight for me. I mean, presentation's only one thing, and it doesn't really determine whether or not the game is good. But I think if you're the type who is more into Modern Warfare as opposed to Vanguard or especially Black Ops, I think I prefer this sort of realistic looking style. It feels a little less arcadey gameplay wise, but I think the visuals reflect that authenticity.
Would say. That grittiness, Yeah, it's definitely there for sure.
Well, so what we're doing is like a good, bad, mid, ugly list. Where would you categorize this, you'd say? Would this fall under the good aspect of Modern Warfare? I would say for me, this is good.
I would say it's good.
This is what I wanted. This is what I was hoping. I mean, visuals probably aren't going to blow you away, at least in multiplayer. I'm sure campaign's got some cool surprises, which we haven't seen yet. But I think if you like this style, this is a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it checks all the boxes, right? So I don't think there's any debate that presentation I would put in the good category. Absolutely.
Okay, so then let's move on to gameplay. This is the meat of the discussion, I imagine.
Yes.
So this plays a lot like Modern Warfare 2019. There are some new additions that we should talk about. Dolphin diving being one of them, which, to be fair, not new to Call of Duty. Been around in different games. They took it out of 2019, and it's back. Does it need to be there? How do you feel about it?
I mean, the more gameplay mechanics that you have, the better, right? I mean, there's nothing, putting dolphin diving back in doesn't really take away from the game in any way, so it seems perfectly fine. And if you're really good at it, it can help heighten your gameplay. Mm-hmm. You can get out of fire if you are about to get gunned down and just dive around the corner. And it does feel a little balanced because if you suddenly dive, you can't just like immediately ready your gun and start shooting. There's like that weird, almost like a grace period where you're kind of stuck. So you have to be very cognizant of when you decide to dolphin dive. But it's also just kind of fun to do. Like if you just dolphin dive off a roof, or if you dolphin dive over like some of the smaller rubble, it feels good. I don't know. I like it. I like running around. I like, being a bit of a hero in Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And so that just kind of like adds to that element of it a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it's nice to have. I feel like I'm a bit more of a, it's weird to say purist because this stuff has existed for a long time, but right. I kind of don't like it when I start seeing this Call of Duty milsim game where people are just diving around on their bellies on shit. And some people like it. That's cool. I've used it from time to time, but I much prefer sliding. And the other thing too, I think this kind of goes back to the balance, is that when you slide, your weapon holster cooldown is slower, right? You slide, you can start shooting then.
Right.
As opposed to dolphin diving, where you physically put your gun away and dive stomach onto the ground, and then you have to ready your gun again.
Right.
So it feels fair in that sense. And then, but this goes back to the guns too, right? I think the guns, feel really good. Like, I love the way they feel. There's a lot of kick, especially if you haven't tune them correctly with different attachments. But
yes.
But when you mix the weightiness of the guns with the sound design and the movement, I think it feels pretty good. I know you had some issues with the kick at early on, though.
It took a minute for me to adjust because, like you said, that recoil, that kick was heavy. And even on our live stream, our chat was noticing. They were like, yo, this recoil is a little too much, you know? But after a while, you get used to it, and it does add a little bit of realism to it. And of course, a lot of those guns that I was using where the kick felt so severe, those were like the base model of the guns where I hadn't really unlocked any of the attachments or, you know, the barrels and things like that. Once I started tweaking them a little bit, and I got used to it, it felt good, really.
When you weigh the time to kill, the shorter time to kill in Modern Warfare with the kick, I think it makes sense. I think if there was a longer time to kill, I'd probably have an issue with the kick as well. But one thing I like about this, and I liked about 2019 and the sort of mil-sim style they push with the Modern Warfare games, is that if I'm accurate, you know, I only need to get a couple shots on them before they drop. I think that even shorter time to kill makes a lot of sense with these weapons. I think overall, the game feels pretty good. One other thing to bring up is all the gadgets. They've added a lot of gadgets. I feel like in Modern Warfare 2019, the gadgets were kind of light. It was like you got a couple grenades, you got your Semtex, your frag grenade, your thermal. I think there was a thermal grenade, and then you got C4 and stuff. But now they got some weirder stuff in play.
Yeah, they do. They got some really fun ones. Some that I didn't really understand until I was on the receiving end of one. For example, the drill charge, which is just a delight. It is so good, especially if you're able to get kind of creative with it. But I personally really love some of these new gadgets and messing around with it, because like the larger and more diverse sandbox you have, the healthier and more longevity you have in the multiplayer, I feel like, you know?
Yeah.
And so with the drill charge in particular, that thing is just hilarious. You know, you can go through walls, you can kind of be smart about it. If you know someone is on like a second level or just camping behind a wall, you can basically punish them for it, which always feels great. But there are some other gadgets that I really like, specifically the DDoS. I think the DDoS is really cool, and being able to kind of scramble people's radars and disable some of their gadgets. There was a moment when someone had this like remote drone bomb, and I was able to disable it, and that felt really cool. But it didn't completely destroy the thing, and after like 6 seconds, the drone reactivated and then blew me up anyway, which sucked, but whatever. But yeah, no, I think it's really cool. And the perks, or not the perks, but the gadgets, they have different cooldowns. There's tiers. So you have certain gadgets that you can use more often.
You've got your primary, which is like your grenades. You've got your secondary, which is like your flashbangs, and then you've got your equipment.
The equipment,
which is what you're talking about with the DDoS, right?
Exactly.
And then there's also the decoy, which is something that I don't think I thought would be useful at all, but it actually ended up being kind of fun.
It's really fun and really funny. I mean, that decoy, for one, you know, it's almost like a pro tip. If you use that decoy and there's an enemy near you, the decoy will actually pop up in the direction of that enemy. So you can almost use it as like a little sentry point to kind of like see where an enemy's coming from. But also hilariously, you can kill yourself with the decoy dummy, which is great. That thing, I love it. It's so good.
Seeing that is a good sign. It means they're, like you're saying, it's going to be more of a sandbox. There's a little bit more malleability to how you can explore these maps. Well, we'll get into the maps later, but there's some things that kind of wish were different in how the maps were designed. Yeah. But I would say, taking a step back, what are your thoughts on gameplay? Do you think easily. This for me is good as well. Not really a second thought. I think gameplay is good. I think maybe if you're more into the arcadey style Call of Duties like Black Ops, maybe you won't like it as much. Yeah. I don't like that, so I feel like I'm at home again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feels good. So moving on, we've got maps and level design.
Oh.
How'd you feel about that? What did you think of the level design overall? Was there any maps that really stood out to you?
So the one that stood out to me, not necessarily my favorite, but the one that stood out to me was the museum map, because that was the main map where it kind of encouraged you to go to like the second floor. There was like multiple levels to that map, and I think the different game modes made that map shine. There was like a hostage rescue game mode where we got that map a few times during our gameplay, and the way that I would run through that map, it just kind of changed from round to round. There were some
Yeah.
hallways that didn't make sense. There were some lanes that were just abandoned. People would take firefights to like a specific section every time.
There's that
you know?
whole open section to, I guess not to the right of the map, east maybe.
Yeah.
That was just completely abandoned.
Right.
No one ever used that because on the other side there was just a nice spot where you could stand and just pop anyone who walks that way. So that side felt kind of useless to me.
Yes.
I didn't care much for the museum map. I think that was probably my least favorite map in the beta. Although I will say, when we did some of the other modes, like hostage rescue or prisoner rescue, it was definitely more interesting there because I felt like that more open style map gave us more options. But even then, I think it's more the aesthetic that I didn't really like. It was just too clean. It felt like, I think someone brought it up that it just felt like a building in Battlefield where it's like you walk in a room. Effect. Yeah, and there's like one desk in this room and it's clean everywhere.
Right.
So like I kept expecting walls to break or something, but nothing happened.
Also, I mean, for the beta, we had a lot of maps just repeating round after round after round.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that might contribute to us getting a little sick of it. Like Farm 19, I was feeling really good about it in the beginning, especially that middle kind of like cluttered maze area because I had the overkill perk. So I had a shotgun as my secondary and I would run around popping kills with like my, auto rifle or whatever, assault rifle. And then I would go inside, swap to the shotgun and just clean house. And that felt great. By the like 5th time I was on that map, I was done. I was like, I'm over this.
That's my favorite map in the beta.
Really?
Because it had that like traditional 3-lane approach to the map where it was like there's the building in the center, there's the training ground or whatever to the left, and then to the other side there's that rundown building where you can kind of provide overwatch for both sides. And I thought that was really neat. I thought it was like there was plenty of different avenues, and I loved how when you take the middle route where B is, if you're playing domination, it was like a little mini maze in there where you could outmaneuver enemies inside there as well as outside. And it felt good for snipers. It felt good for close range. It felt good for mid range. I thought that map in general was pretty good. There weren't any avenues that I wasn't really using. I would say the one building where you can kind of support both sides, I didn't go into a whole lot, but I think more of that was due to the fact that I just didn't get a sniper rifle in this beta, except for the one you start with. I think if I had something like that, I may have spent more time there. But even when people were there, I didn't feel like I was just being pinned down by a sniper. I felt like I actually could respond and take out those people providing Overwatch or whatever it might be.
For sure. Yeah.
So overall, how are you feeling about the maps? And these are just the 6v6 domination maps. We're not talking about ground war yet.
Right. So 6v6 domination maps, those close quarter maps, I feel pretty good about them, although I'm starting to fall a little bit to the meh, aspect of some of these maps. I think it's more of the more that I play the maps, the more likely it is that I could get tired of them. Is what it is. But I'm sure at launch we're gonna have a larger variety of different maps, and that's gonna keep me satiated for a long time. So
yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same. I think I'd probably put this in the mid section, I would say, just because I'm kind of sick of the 3-lane structure of a lot of these maps. And that was one thing I liked about 2019 was that it felt like they were moving away from that.
Right.
And I remember in interviews they said they were trying to approach it like Modern Warfare, where it was more point control as opposed to 3 lanes. Now, I get why most people prefer 3 lanes. It forces you to be a little more dynamic, a little more active in how you're maneuvering these maps. I think that's probably why I liked Farm 19 in El Mercado, is that I felt like there were viable spots for me to kind of not hunker down because I can't stay still for too long, but at least spots where I could regroup, kind of figure things out, plan my strategy. So yeah, I'd say a mid on the maps so far. I imagine when we get more maps, it'll feel more diverse, and I probably won't get sick of them. I really don't want to play Museum when this comes out. I really don't want to play more Museum. I think I'm good there. Okay, progression system.
Oh God.
So we're gonna do this in 2 parts. We got progression system and Gunsmith.
Okay.
So progression system overall, how are you feeling? I think this is the most confusing aspect, but we got a lot of pushback in the video you did. People were like,
yes,
oh, you guys just don't get it. We get it. All right, we get it. But that doesn't mean it's good.
Right. It does not mean that it's good. I'm very much meh on the progression. On the one hand, to kind of like to kind of gas it up a bit, I do feel good about the amount of XP that I get after a round. It's very generous, especially if you have a really good round. There were times where I think I unlocked where I got to weapon level 20 after one round because I just popped off, and I was like, oh my god, this feels great. You just see the bar fly up and you get all these attachment unlocks. It's that second step that throws me off. You know what I mean? And progression. The unlock part of it is just play the game, which is simple enough. You do that passively. But the moment that I had to start tweaking, things and using the things that I had unlocked, that's when I started kind of taking a step back and zoning out a bit and being like, oh my god. It didn't help that in the beta, and I'm sure this is just a beta problem, but anytime that one of us in our party kept trying to mess with their stuff and their setup and
get pulled out,
you would get pulled out.
It happened from being in a lobby to starting a game. I got pulled out 3 or 4 times. It's you know what? I'm just going to wait until the game starts, and I will trick out my weapon when I get in there because I am tired of being kicked out.
Exactly. And that's so frustrating, really, And so that's kind of where I'm at, with that first part of progression, where it's it feels nice to unlock it, but there's got to be a more cohesive second half to it, to be able to use it. What about you?
I think I agree for the most part. I will say there are things I really appreciate about it. I like that I'm not leveling up every gun for the same attachments over and over again. It's very nice that I can unlock a scope that will work on other stuff, or a reflex sight. Now, the thing that was kind of weird and confusing was I spent probably the first 3 hours not having a reflex or a dot sight, red dot sight. Turns out I had to use a SMG to unlock it, and I couldn't find where that information was. I'm sure if I sat there and dug through menus, I would have, and that would have been cool. But also, I just want to know. Just when I go to it, tell me how to unlock it. And maybe it did say somewhere in there, but I felt like there was just a wall of text on any of the Gunsmith stuff. It was even to the point where some weapons would say, yeah, you unlock at level 22 or whatever, and then other weapons wouldn't say it. And it's because you unlocked a receiver. And there was also this progression tree that would show you the path you needed to go in order to unlock which guns. Which, look, I think the idea of swapping out receivers is cool. I really like that as someone who is into firearms and video games and that kind of stuff. I think that's cool. It makes sense logically. But I think in a video game sense, it seems really weird. And it seems a little more complicated than it needs to be. I'm sure when it comes out and I get the hang of it, this won't be as much of an issue, but right now, I think it could use some adjustments. Make things a little more clearly, put the information that I need front and center.
For sure. I mean, the progression tree was a little odd at first. I know, like you mentioned in the last video that I made, there were folks in the comments that were saying, no, the progression tree totally makes sense. Using an LMG receiver totally makes sense to unlock the M16 or whatever, and I can totally see that point. There was some confusion for me because I am a casual. I am a casual when it comes to firearms.
Get out of here.
I'm a gamer and a gamer only, and so when it comes to there was this one other progression tree to unlock, I believe it was the SMG, and you had to use a battle rifle. I didn't get that at all. That made no sense to me. You know what I mean? And so at that point, not only does it not make sense, but you start to feel a little bit of frustration because you just want a clear path to unlock the SMG or whatever, and it just felt like that progression tree, that progression system was kind of working against me.
Okay, so before we move on to Gunsmith, progression system, how do you feel? Good, bad, mid, ugly?
I'm mid on it. I'm mid to bad, actually, if I think about it.
I think I'm bad. I think I'm bad on the progression system. However, I think Gunsmith is still really good. While the UI is messy, I think the main appeal of it is still there, and the more customization is better.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, being able to tinker with your weapons is always a good thing. You know what I mean? Whether if it's making a Frankenstein gun that could defy the meta, I mean, there's a possibility there. That's a lot of fun, especially for those players out there that love tinkering and creating and making their own concoction, kind of like making a gun their own. I think the Gunsmith is a great tool for that. The problem is that I have such a tough time tied with the progression trying to navigate all those unlocks into the Gunsmith that it makes it hard for me. But I do like messing with stuff and customizing it, and I also like that you can't just overload your gun. There's a limit to how many
5 attachments.
That's right.
Back in our day, we could only put one attachment on guns. Do you remember that? Modern Warfare, the first one attachment. I think there was a perk that let you put 2, and it was like, oh. And I remember when the original Modern Warfare 2 came out, people were mad that you'd be able to put a high-powered scope and a suppressor on a sniper because that seems overpowered.
Oh my God!
And
look at where we are now.
Look at where we are now. We just dated the hell out of ourselves. But yeah, I think, as you said, UI issues aside, Gunsmith is still great. I love messing with that kind of stuff. Like I said, going back to the receiver stuff, I like that that's right in there, that I can just swap right into an SMG, LMG right on the fly. Because at the end of the day, honestly, probably my favorite thing about Modern Warfare and about this is just messing with different guns, making different builds. And I think it's pretty powerful. I think there's a lot of unique attachments that could hopefully change how you interact with these different weapons. I'm also, like you said, I'm excited to make some just busted ass weapons, not even like OP, just weapons that make absolutely no sense, and then we can throw them at our firearm expert, Jonathan Ferguson, and he can tell us how dumb they are. Because let's be honest, that's always the best. Stuff. So Gunsmith, how you feeling? I think I'm mid for Gunsmith, mostly because of the UI.
It was funny. I was gonna say bad in the beginning, but you kind of warmed me up to it. I think mid is correct.
Third person mode, the other big thing they added. So once again, this is not new. They added it in Modern Warfare 2. I didn't like third person mode in Modern Warfare 2 2009. Don't like it now. I think it's weird that when you hit L to zoom in, it goes to first person mode. I kind of wish it was just a closer over the shoulder look.
Right, like the Division or something even, you know what I mean? Like, there is something cool about third person, being able to shoulder swap, being able to kind of like 3-peek over walls, It adds a different dynamic to firefights. I get it. But the moment that I'm able to zoom in, and I always zoom in, it just doesn't make sense anymore. Also, your guy kind of runs a little weird, doesn't he? Like in third person, the way he's like almost like does this silly shimmy waddle. Like
I don't care for third person. My guess, this is a guess, but I think they added it so they can put it in Warzone at some point and have like third person servers, because if you look at the battle royale landscape apart from Apex, landscape Fortnite's third person. That's their main competitor, I imagine, with Warzone. I imagine third person is there for that. And to be fair, I'd be interested in trying out a third person Warzone because, that map is big. It's nice to be able to see more 3-peek in Warzone. Probably a little broken, but could be good to have. I mean, that was a strategy in PUBG that I had back in the day where it's just, I'm not going to peek because I don't need to. I'm just going to hang right here and I'm going to look at the right of my screen and see where y'all are coming from.
Yeah.
Fortnite feels like a good third-person game. A lot of these third-person games that are designed to be third-person feel good. This feels, I don't know, it feels like a little weightless. It's weird to describe. It just doesn't quite feel right. So for me, this is probably an ugly or a bad situation.
I completely agree. I do want to point out, though, that you had a incredible point because I did not think about the potential of Warzone 2.0 having a third-person mode. That is very astute. And I think in Warzone 2.0, we could look at that and be like, this is pretty novel and cool. In the beta and the base game mode, unnecessary. I think it's ugly too.
Yeah. All right, so before we wrap up, what's your overall feeling on this beta? Good, mid, bad, ugly?
It is a in-between mid to good to me. I think that there is enough good in this beta that it gave me what I expected, what I want. And if anything, it made me hungrier for the final release.
Yeah, so. I think I'm same spot as you. I think I'm good mid. I think that will definitely change when there's more maps in rotation because
for sure.
As much as I did like Farm 19 and El Mercado, I was getting sick of some of them, and I'd like to just see what else is on offer. So yeah, good mid.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, why don't you let us know what you think of the Call of Duty Modern Warfare beta if you got to play it, or let us know what you think when it comes out. Comes out what? October 21st for single player, October 28th for multiplayer,
yes,
and November something for
Warzone 2.0.
For Warzone and DMZ 2.0. So we got a ton of Call of Duty stuff coming your way for the rest of the year. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned to GameSpot.